Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, Timothy J. Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Shouts out to everybody here right now. Shouts out to everyone listening around the country, around the world, wherever you are, wherever you may be. Thank you for allowing the State of the Saints podcast to be a part of your New Orleans Saints selection when it comes to the podcasting. But let's go ahead and get into it. Today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about how the Saints knocked off the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 20-17 and giving the final thoughts on that game. But we want to mention that this show is powered by BETUS. Sign up today, get up to 150% on your first deposit. And you can also get 125% on your second and third deposits up to $2,000. All you have to do is download the BETUS app and use the promo code YouTube150. And shouts out to everybody that has been using the promo code, has been using BETUS for their go-to place to place bets on games. It really means a lot that, that people are supporting the show, because that's how sponsors, start to hit your boy up, and we begin to grow as a podcast. So shouts out to everybody. I got a couple of people that actually won using BETUS on yesterday because they had Marquez Valdez-Scantling at the top of their lineup. So they want a little bit of change there. But BETUS is the place to go to place your bets. And we'll get into the line a little bit later in the show. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Saints' victory, knocking off the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 20-17. Nobody really saw this coming. Well, I saw it coming because I knew that the New Orleans Saints could beat the Atlanta Falcons. And, honestly, I said this on yesterday. If you watched the show on Sunday when the game was taking place and afterwards, I said that the Atlanta Falcon fan base, they just got this straight delusion about their football team and what they are when it comes to the wins and the losses. And I will concede that there are some things that I said about the Atlanta Falcons, them being delusional, the Saints having a chance to win the division, and blase. But they are an improved football team, but there's one small problem. The Atlanta Falcons haven't beaten a team that has a winning record. And I said that. I said it on the prediction show. they won football games against low-hanging fruit teams. You can say the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Philadelphia Eagles were 1-1 and they were trying to figure it out, and their coach was on a hot seat. But outside of that, who have they played that has solidified themselves as one of the top teams in the NFC? So they've improved because they got some better quarterback play in Kirk Cousins. But Kirk Cousins, once again, has lost more games against winning teams than he has won. And if you looked at that first game, a lot of what the Saints did in that first game, they kind of gift wrapped the game to the Atlanta Falcons. And you can say in this game right here, the Atlanta Falcons returned the favor. I know for a fact that if the Saints would have played a game like this with Dennis Allen as the head coach, they would have lost, and there wouldn't have been a chance for them to be able to turn this thing around. I can say that right now. But I like the fight. I like the grit of this New Orleans Saints football team, and I think they did everything that they can possibly do to win this football game. And I think that the Atlanta Falcons underestimated the New Orleans Saints. Like, even if you look at the game plan, they probably looked at Marshawn Lattimore getting traded to the Commanders. They looked at Paulson Adebo being out for the season with a broken leg. They looked at Alontae Taylor, who was a nickel they put to the outside, and you have Shamar Jean-Charles, who is on the other side, and you don't have Kool-Aid McKinstry. So their game plan was probably, let's go ahead and jump on them early. They don't have the dogs in the fight, so to speak, when it comes to the secondary. And all of a sudden, like, they just start throwing the football, getting away from the things that got them to the show in the first place, which is running the football, which they did in the second half. But to me, I feel like the New Orleans Saints were able to kind of manage the lead that they had. And I just think that it was just a bad game plan by Atlanta. But I think it had a lot to do with arrogance of that team. And then some of the talking and trash talking was the arrogance of their fan base. And yes, you can come on here and talk about how the New Orleans Saints are 3-7. Yes, they are 3-7. But to me, that's an indictment on your football team. The fact that the Saints came into a game against the Atlanta Falcons, who had a 3-game lead in the South, and they managed to beat the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 20-17. That's an indictment on your football team. Because if the Saints were that trash, then I'm just saying, why can't y'all handle business? I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. They're a much better improved football team, but to me, they got a lot of work to do, and they're not in a place to sit up here and just be talking noise. To me, I found it funny that, you had some Atlanta Falcons, onlookers and talking heads were like, oh man, this is the Saints Super Bowl. This they Super Bowl right here. This they Super Bowl right here. I must, like, I don't know, man. I must have teleported into like a different dimension or something like that, because y'all got to help me with this. Correct me if I'm wrong. When the last time did the Atlanta Falcons go to the playoffs? I want to say, 2018? When was the last time they won a division or had a winning record around this time? I mean, it's been a minute, right? So my thing is, how all of a sudden y'all finally find some level of prosperity for 1 year, for one season, and now all of a sudden we're supposed to like completely like be quiet because finally y'all been yelling from the rooftop, this our year, 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 and then finally it happens for you. Now all of a sudden nobody can say nothing. Oh, y'all 3-7. No. That don't hurt us, because here's the thing. Every New Orleans Saints fan this week got exactly what they wanted for 7 whole days. Like Tony Braxton say, 7 whole days. For 7 whole days, the New Orleans Saints have gotten what they wanted. Saints fans have gotten what they wanted. They wanted Dennis Allen out of the door. They got it. They wanted a head coach that can light a fire under a team. They got it. They wanted to beat the Falcons, and guess what? They got it. Everybody knows where the Saints are this season. It has been an absolute disaster. Has a lot to do with the fact that Mickey Loomis held on way too long with this Dennis Allen experience. should have got fired last season. And that was one of the main reasons. And they knew it. That's the thing. They knew it, because I want y'all to pay attention to something. I noticed this. Did y'all notice that once Dennis Allen got fired, how quiet the home front was? Because they knew exactly what we all knew, is those guys did not want to play for Dennis Allen. What a difference a coaching change makes and some energy makes. Now, I'm not sitting up here trying to crown Darren Rizzy as the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. It helps that you beat the Falcons. But this is about a guy who, in a short week, was able to breathe some life into their locker room. And that's a plus. I don't know what's going to happen. You might go out there, lose next week, be unprepared. Fine, whatever. But at the same time, he did what he needed to do in order for the Saints to be successful. And we know over the last couple of weeks, the scenarios towards the end of that game, more than likely, it would have fell into the hands of the opposition. But it's good to see that the New Orleans Saints could overcome some level of adversity and be able to come away with a victory. But all I'm saying is, who are the Atlanta Falcons to sit up here and act like they sitting on Mount Olympus? Season ain't even over. The fact is, the way that the team is structured, yeah, like I said, they improved. But I ain't seen enough winning for them to sit up here and just act as if they just so superior to everybody else. And that's one of the main reasons why I loved this victory. Because they were so sure and so confident. You can tell like they spent their hard-earned money coming down to New Orleans, thought they was going to go to a funeral to put the nail into the coffin of the New Orleans Saints, looked at the Saints as low-hanging fruit. And then all of a sudden, they got their hearts broken. But it's not going to stop there, because I can tell you this right now. They ain't going nowhere in the playoffs. They're not going anywhere in the playoffs, folks. Kirk Cousins is who he is exactly what he is and has been since he has come into the league. He is the greatest quarterback tease. He's probably top 5 greatest quarterback tease of all time. He's up there with Tony Romo when it comes to quarterback tease. Will make you feel good about yourself. Maybe even get you to a point where you're talking noise to rival teams. Like, oh man, y'all suck. Look what Kirk doing. Look what he doing. Look what he doing. I can tell you what he hasn't done against the Saints. He hasn't thrown a passing touchdown against the New Orleans Saints. He has a 59% completion percentage against the New Orleans Saints. 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are the only team that Kirk Cousins has yet to throw a passing touchdown against. To say that the New Orleans Saints has Kirk Cousins' number when it comes to being in the Atlanta Falcon uniform would be an understatement. But all I'm saying is this. They ain't did enough. Once again, they ain't did enough for me to be quiet about their football team. And once again, we all know what the Saints are. And honestly, at this point, we don't care. We do not care. As long as they beat them Falcons, we already know where the Saints sit. So if the season goes awry, which it already has, we already looking forward to what can happen in 2025. And that's okay. So sitting up there with the jokes, that's to try to pacify themselves, because they were so confident. They were so confident in this. And and I also, final thing before we move on and got these sound bites. It's amazing to me how the Atlanta Falcons, when we bring up the Saints beat them 48-17, the Saints have won 11 of the last 14 matchups versus the Atlanta Falcons. The New Orleans Saints are like has a double-digit lead when it comes to winning in the last 20 years against the Atlanta Falcons. They'll say all this stuff like, oh, man, that's the past. Y'all bringing up the past. Y'all bringing up the past. But when the Saints won on Sunday, they start bringing up the past about what the overall record was and all that kind of stuff, right? So I kind of understand Atlanta Falcon fans now. They're okay with you bringing up the past as long as the past benefits them in some way, shape, or form. But all I know is the New Orleans Saints knocked off the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 20-17. There's this old saying, and then we'll go to the comments. Keep your words soft and sweet because you never know when you got to eat them. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank y'all for being here. Really do appreciate it. Shouts out to everybody in the chat. Shouts out to Mount Olympus, who donated $2. Says the Falcons ain't nowhere near me right now, says Mount Olympus. Nah, they nowhere near. They're, like I said, I will give them credit for being an improved football team. But they're not one of the class of the NFC. They're just not. And it would not surprise me at all if they go out to Denver on Sunday and lose. It would not surprise me at all. Denver mad. They're upset that, they could have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs and Will Lutz's field goal got blocked. They felt like they had a better game plan. So you combine that and the fact that Sean Payton knows the Atlanta Falcons like the back of his hand. Good luck with that, fellas. Good luck with that. All right, but anyway, we got Kirk Cousins is a regular season stat pattern. When it matters, he falls short. All I know is I think that Kirk Cousins is a really good quarterback. I'm not going to take that away from him. But he is a quarterback tease. He is a quarterback tease. Has really good arm talent, can make all the throws. If he goes up against some of the top quarterbacks in the league, he can go toe-to-toe with them. He gives fan bases confidence. He makes them feel like they're actually going to win something. You look at Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota, what they won, like 13 games, 12 games with Kirk Cousins. Washington, then, football team, Redskins. When he was playing with them, he was winning football games with them. Felt like they had a franchise quarterback. But, Washington was like, nah, I don't know about this dude. But when it comes down to it, when it matters most, when in crunch time, can he come and can he deliver? Can he come and deliver the goods? Can he do what needs to be done to win football games? And more so than not, he has not. He has not. But he's gonna continue to put up stats. He's gonna continue to play really good football because that's what he does. So just want to leave it at that. They can't even bring up the overall record because the record is a tie. They can't bring that up. And honestly, even with that, they add the playoff win. When we talking about regular season, the Saints have it. They bring up the playoff win because it makes them like seem like, oh, they got a lead. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, any type of advantage that they feel like they have, that's when they start coming out. I ain't hear that same noise. I have not heard the same noise. I ain't hear none of that. There's some of the people that was up here talking and saying all this stuff when they lost to Carolina and going out here and retweeting everything that I said at the beginning of the season, and making it seem like, oh, he just crazy. I don't know what he talking about. I ain't see those people. I ain't see that same energy. I wouldn't even have an issue so much with this fan base or lack thereof if they didn't live in this world where you're basically trying to reestablish yourself. You haven't done anything in a long time. You haven't done anything in the division in a long time. You haven't beaten some of these teams in the division consistently as much in a long time. But they acting like, okay, we got 1 year of prosperity and now we can talk about everybody and y'all need to bow. Like, man, please. They haven't done anything. Like, beat a team with a winning record. Like, do something that I feel like, that shows us that you're just not a middle of the pack team. Big fan, TJ. I'm glad we won, but man, we gonna mess up the top 5 pick if we keep this up. Look, I don't care, man. At the end of the day, as long as the Saints beat the Falcons, I don't care. I don't care. I ain't trying to sacrifice no top 5 pick. Yeah, I don't want to sacrifice the top 5 pick, but if that means I have to beat the Falcons, then guess what? Give me that 6 pick. Give me that 7 pick. Give me that 8 pick. Give it to me. Denver probably going to beat them. I think so. Who that? Timothy J. Jones, the host. What's going on, man? Thank you for being here. Inevitable says class of the NFC is Detroit, Philly, and still San Francisco. Yep. Those are the teams that you're going to have to go up against. I mean, you can even add Minnesota up in there. Minnesota playing some good football as well. I feel like DA would make the Bengals Super Bowl contenders. He will make the Bengals Super Bowl contenders. As far as what, being a D coordinator? Probably not as a head coach. I think we all know that. I assume you're talking about being a defensive coordinator, Josh. Says, we won a game that we wouldn't have won with DA. I mean, that goes without saying. But speaking of DA, we all thought, around this time last week that we kind of just turned the page when it comes to Dennis Allen. I think that I just think that what was understood don't need to be explained. I was just trying to find that saying. What's understood don't need to be explained. He is a good, great defensive coordinator, terrible head coach. Not a real true leader of men, just kind of an X's and O's guy that's really good at his side of the football. But all of a sudden, the game took place on Sunday. Saints get the victory. Everybody's excited. Man, fire up the music. Dust off the stereo system. We back. Everybody's excited. Even people ain't really criticizing Derek Carr. Made some throws down the field, man. Nice deep ball. First half, looking serviceable, right? Everybody like, man, we ain't even getting on Derek Carr like that. Most of the criticism was going toward Clint Kubiak and a conservative play call in the second half. Just when you think, okay, man, all right, Derek Carr, you straight for a week, bro. You cool, man. Nobody really saying anything about Derek Carr. They put a microphone in this guy's face, and he says this.
We just want to win. Our city deserves a winner, and that's all we want to do. So shout out to DA because he helped us build this. I know he wasn't here today, and I know Rizzy will say the same thing. Shout out to DA because he helped build, paved the way for us. And so, DA, we love you, but I'm happy for Riz, too. That's his first win, and hopefully that gets us back on track.
All you had to do was say this was a tough, hard victory, but we got it done. Shouts out to the offense, shouts out to the defense, the team collectively together. We worked together and we managed to break this losing streak. And it feels good to win. And hopefully we can pile up a couple of more so we can keep this good feeling that we have after winning this football game today. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Pam. Walk to the locker room. This is my issue with Derek Carr. This is my issue with Derek Carr. This is my issue. The man, for some apparent reason, just has this infatuation with just saying the right thing, doing the right thing, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes type mentality. Bruh, if DA, I want y'all, help me out here. If DA built that, if DA was appreciated and loved as much as he's saying that DA is, and I'm pretty sure on a human scale, he probably is. But as a coach, if all of this love was in the air, like it was February 14th, why is Dennis Allen sitting at the house and Darren Rizzy is the coach? Why is it that your teammates seem to have a little bit more enthusiasm and energy on the football field than they did when Dennis Allen was lurking the sidelines? All I'm saying is, bruh, be quiet. Like, read the room, dude. The coach that you're talking about building something and establishing something ain't even there. It couldn't have been that good because if it was, he would still be the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes at times, wants to say the right things, and I said this before. Derek Carr strikes me as an individual that it would bother him and keep him up at night when somebody does not like him. If somebody doesn't like him or doesn't sing his praises and say that, anything about him, he will go out of his way, in my opinion, to try to show that person that he is a nice guy. This whole thing about Dennis Allen had very little to do with Dennis Allen establishing his football team and building this, because we all know the truth. Yeah, those players were on the team, but he didn't build anything. You got Kendre Miller on IR basically out of spite. You had Marquez Valdez-Scantling, a healthy scratch the first couple of days he actually got there, even though Valdez-Scantling was probably the best wide receiver you had on your team at the time that could have been opposite of Chris Olave, but you have him on the bench. And miss me with that stuff about, well, he just got here, because I watched Mike Williams get traded from the Jets to the Pittsburgh Steelers and scored a touchdown 3 days later. All I'm saying is, dude just has this infatuation with being liked, saying the right things, doing the right things. And that whole DA spiel was ridiculous, because everybody knows if everybody just had this type of love for him, why didn't the players go up there and be like, man, I know you're thinking about firing DA, but hey, man, I think that we can do something. Man, those players had the conversation with Gail Benson. I don't know, maybe you weren't there. Maybe you wasn't in the room because they felt like you had like some type of lovey-dovey or relationship with Dennis Allen. He showed favoritism towards you, so maybe you weren't at the meeting. But Gail Benson made her decision based on the meeting that she had with those players. So if those players would have stood in the trenches for Dennis Allen, he would be on the sidelines coaching the game versus the Atlanta Falcons. That was one of the most ridiculous statements I've ever heard in my entire life. Sometimes, dude, it's okay with moving on. It's okay with, not trying to politic. And that's one of the things that kind of bothers me about him. I think that Derek Carr is a really good person. I like the fact that he is a spiritual man, a family man, all those good qualities I feel like you need in a human being. But sometimes this desire going outside your way just to say the right things, do the right things. Bruh, at that particular moment, it wasn't even warranted. That didn't even make any sense. It didn't make any sense. If he was all that in the high wheel track and everybody loved him the way you say he did, he would still be the coach. And we wouldn't have seen a completely Jekyll and Hyde type performance between the New Orleans Saints from last week versus Carolina versus this week versus the Atlanta Falcons. I'm just saying. Rise up, TJ and Aints Nation. Y'all deserve to win due to our bad play. Falcons not losing to the Broncos as long as Mickey is running things. ATL wins. Well, they didn't win yesterday because they lost to the New Orleans Saints by a score of 20-17. And we all know that Sean Payton has y'all number. Sean Payton been putting foots in the Atlanta Falcons since he got to the Saints in 2006. And like I said, it would not surprise me at all if the Atlanta Falcons lose to the Denver Broncos. I mean, I don't look. Even the most illogical Atlanta Falcon fan would have to admit Sean Payton is y'all daddy. Like, I mean, he is. No matter what quarterback he puts out there, no matter what scheme, they always find a way to beat the Atlanta Falcons. You know it, and I know it. And some of those games, they don't even be close. So I don't know. Good luck, though. You seen that report by Ian Rappaport that says Mickey Loomis has no plans to begin a rebuild this offseason. Delusional. Well, he can say that, but everything that they're doing right now indicates that they are doing a little bit of a rebuild. Like, you don't give away Marshawn Lattimore for a third-round pick if you're not rebuilding. That's the cornerstone player right there. That's the best cornerback in your franchise's history that you shipped out. And to be honest with you, I would not be surprised if you see some other guys that that might end up getting shipped out in the offseason. I don't feel like Carl Granderson is not on the table. I really don't. I think that maybe he will be considered being traded. I think you're going to see some things. When it comes to Mickey Loomis, I kind of look at things tongue in cheek because he says like things that just have you scratching your head. But I've seen over the last couple of years, he says one thing, and then at the end of the season, they do something completely different. Like last year, around this time, he said he felt like they had the right people in the building as far as offensively. We have the right people in the building. And he ended up firing the entire offensive staff in the offseason. So I think this is one of those cases where he just says like crazy things and, you know, in opportune times. And it's like, man, what are you doing? It's like when you're going through adversity, you look towards your leaders, right? To be able to say the right things, do the right things, etc. Right? And you're looking at them like, man, I'm at a loss right now. What do I do? And then they just say something that just completely nutty, that's irrelevant, and it's like they completely thinking a different way from you. And I think that's what it is when it comes to Mickey Loomis. I don't know, man. I don't know what it is about Mickey Loomis. I don't know if he's like, I know that he doesn't have the pulse of, you know, on the fan base. He just doesn't. It seemed like to me, it seemed like he's at war with the fan base. It's okay for you to not take into consideration what fans say because, you know, fans are emotional. We go by and see certain things, and then, you know, we make our judgment based on that. Sometimes they're irrational. Sometimes they are rational decisions. But at the same time, you can't be looking, you know, for fans. But at the same time, you have to be man enough, woman enough to cut your losses. And not just sit up here and act as if they don't exist. I think that's the biggest issue that Saints fans have with Mickey Loomis. Mickey Loomis acts as if he's the smartest guy in the room. He's the guy that's trying to pretend like the house isn't on fire. He's still standing in the living room, and there's a fire that's ablaze upstairs, and everybody can smell the smoke. They can see the smoke coming down the stairs, but he's still standing there saying, no, the house isn't on fire. And I think that's the most frustrated thing to Saints fans, is that he just doesn't want to admit that the Dennis Allen experience was a disaster. And if the Saints can muster up a couple of wins, or dare I say, go on a winning streak, it really makes him look incompetent, because it's going to make you seem or feel as if you had like this special place in your heart for Dennis Allen and you just didn't want to pull the trick. And it's also going to make fans think, dang, what could have possibly happened if he would have fired this guy after the Denver game, or fired him after the Tampa Bay game when Tampa put 51 points up on him? Which I feel like that was like eye-popping and alarming, to say the least, that 51 points were put on him. To me, the team checked out. And Mickey Loomis just decided to just kind of act oblivious to the fact. And it took Gail Benson to jump in to say enough is enough. Yeah, but thank you for that, Bronze. I really do appreciate that, man. Thank you for that. Yeah, but you can't get caught up on saying the right things, doing the right things. I don't know, man. I think that Derek Carr, sometimes he just tries to do way too much, man. Way to go, dumbass, Derek Carr. I'm not gonna call him a dumb. I won't call him a dumbass. And excuse my French. I apologize. I'm just reading the comment, but I just think that he cares way too much about what people think about him. And that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. And in some cases, I'm the same way. Like I care about what people think, you know, at times, you know, and I gotta kind of, I don't do it as much, but it took some time. And honestly, it even took like some counseling in order for me to get to that point. You know, anybody that follows me knows that I deal with anxiety, right? So it can flare up when you're looking at like certain things, and it can, like, man, why is this person, like, they don't know me? Like, it does bother you. Like when you have these certain opinions about things and you're just giving your opinion, and then there's some random Joe Blow just come up here that don't know you from a can of paint, don't really know you, socialize with you, etc. And they say these certain things, and it's like, man, if you would know me, I don't think you would have that, you know, that type of feeling towards me. And I think that, you know, that's something that you battle with. But when it comes to Derek Carr, I think, you know, he deals with the same thing. But he goes out his way sometimes, and by going out of his way, he makes himself like, let's look ridiculous doing it. I'm just being serious. But once again, the State of Saints podcast powered by BETUS. Sign up today Get up to 150% on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposit, up to $2,000. Download the BetUS app or go to the website and use the promo code YouTube150. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. I don't know. I'm trying to see what you said. I don't even know what you said, Jerry. I apologize. Said get the likes up. I appreciate that, Cartel. Thank you for that. Was Derek Carr like this in college? I don't know. I really don't know. Do you think Derek Carr is better than Kirk? No, I do not. I do not. I do not. I think that Kirk Cousins is much better than Derek Carr. Like I really do. I think Kirk Cousins is better than him. I just think that Kirk Cousins just folds like a cheap tent in big time games, you know. And you know, but as far as like being the better quarterback, yeah, Kirk Cousins is better. And he way too friendly with the Falcons sidelines. You talking about Derek Carr? Let's see, Mickey and Carr on my need to go Christmas list. Don't forget how DA did AT. Yeah, I mean, they didn't like any of the like. I don't get it, man. Like I don't. And there was one thing, and I was talking to my dad this morning, and we were talking about how Darren Rizzy encourages players. Like he's up there talking about guys like Kevin Austin, guys like Dante Pettis, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, like Peyton Turner. Like he is like feeding these guys confidence, man, and calling these guys out and telling them good job. It makes them want to be able to like keep going and keep climbing and keep excelling. Like it's okay to like give a guy a compliment. And I feel like that's something that Dennis Allen suffered with. I don't know. Like he never really gave like credit to the players if they had a good practice or if they played well in a game. You didn't really see him doing that. Now, it could be the fact that they lost 7 games until they knocked off the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 20-17 this past Sunday. But all I'm saying is he never really gave credit. Like even I remember one time I was watching training camp video, and I think Jake Haener had a really good day of practice. I think he went out there, he spent the ball really well, and I think all the beat writers that were out there in Irvine were saying how Jake Haener looked really good in practice. And, you know, they kept on asking him about Jake Haener's performance, and he would just tongue-in-cheek, ho-hum about it. And then finally, it was like pulling teeth. He was like, you know what? I'll say it. He had a good day of practice. Like, dude, imagine you going up there saying, man, I really liked how Jake Haener practiced today. I mean, the spin on the ball. I mean, he looked really good. I'm excited about what I've seen from him. We just got to build on that, but he's doing an outstanding job. That's what you want to see from your young talent. Imagine what that would have done for Jake Haener. You know, like sometimes, man, you got to be able to build the character and the confidence of your players. And Darren Rizzy stood up there, made like an executive decision, putting a captain's patch on Alvin Kamara. Like, dude, are you serious? Alvin Kamara is the face of the New Orleans Saints, one of the faces. He as of right now, in a lot of people's eyes, is the greatest running back in the history of the franchise. Why doesn't this dude have a captain's patch? He had one, last year? What's the difference between last year and this year? Now, you can say, oh, man, I'm taking a vote, but who is going to say anything if they say, man, you know what? I'm going to make Alvin a captain as well. Who gonna go against that? It's stuff like that. It's acknowledging the contributions of a player, showing them that you appreciate their contributions, and that player is going to want to run through a wall for you. When you have a leader that looks out for you, that appreciates you, it just makes you want to go harder. I'll give you an example. When I was 20 years old, I was working at a retail store, right? I was in Dallas, Texas at the time. I was fresh out of college. I was one of the youngest managers like in the entire district. I'm 20 years old, making a nice little bit of money. No like no family or anything like that. You know, I ain't had no son, girl, no nothing like that, right? I was out here like every weekend. Man, I would go out 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, open the store maybe like 2 hours later, tired, dragging. And the district manager didn't like my performance. And he went to the guy who actually recommended me for the job because I started off as overnight and he seen something in me and lobbied for me. So they were going to like, you know, push me out of the door, make me demote me. But he was like, let me talk to him. I roll up to a store. It had to be like early in the morning, like around 6 o'clock. He was in his car waiting for me. And it meant a lot to me at the time because, well, I'll get to that later. But we go into the store. He talks to me probably like an hour because the store opened about an hour later. And he just talked to me about squandering opportunity and talk about how special this is for you and how you know, he's seeing certain great leadership qualities in me. And I honestly didn't think anything of it. He was like, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you fix what's broken. And it's up to you when it's all said and done. So I end up like having a conversation with one of my friends that was at a previous store when I was at the store that he managed. And they were in shock because this manager, in the 10 years that he managed that store, never left the store. Like he never went out to outside projects or anything like that. Anytime they asked him to do something, like, nah, you know, I'll you know, they can come over here by me. That man left because he felt like something was special inside of me and he wanted to take out. He passed away maybe 2 years ago. And there's not a day that goes by when I'm thinking about being in a leadership role, I don't think about that man. And what he instilled inside of me that day when I found out that he never left that store, but he felt something special was there in me. Now, I say that to say this. When you see something special in somebody, when you can encourage that person, they see that. And it makes them want to go the extra mile. It makes them want to try to attain the level of greatness that is inside of them. And if they leaving a little bit left in the tank, it makes them want to exhaust it because of the feelings and the viewpoint of a person that they respect and admire as a leader. Darren Rizzy went up there and imagine Kevin Austin, who was playing in a USFL, him calling this guy out. Imagine what that did to that man's confidence versus Dennis Allen, who didn't really compliment players as much in front of honestly, you know, spectators. It's okay to compliment guys behind the scenes, but it's even better that the entire world knows or sees how you feel about that player. For them to be able to go into the archives and probably during adverse moments, be able to look at that and be like, man, he sees something inside of me. Man, I can do this. You ain't get that from Dennis Allen. You ain't getting that from them. And like I said, I'll give his name just for this simple point. Mr. Gary Snow. His name was Gary Snow. When he did that for me, my life as a manager was never the same. Like I've attained like all type of awards and accolades because of that moment and that time when that guy did that. And like I said, I was 20. I'm 38 now. That was 18 years ago. And what he did for me, I still remember to this day. So a good, kind word and some belief can go a long way. So don't be afraid to tell somebody, you know, that they, you know, great, special, you know, like, especially if you see something inside of them. We live in this world that they, oh man, I ain't trying to be up here trying to ride dude, man. I ain't trying to ride girl. Like somebody doing something, give them a compliment. If you see something special in them, if you see something in them, tell them. You don't know what that means to a person. And I think that DA dropped the ball when it came to that. DA said it was no good new players on our team. Think about that, Pammy. Think about if you at work, manager say, I'm about to have a meeting. And you're like, man, I don't see any good leaders up in here. I don't see nobody that want to move up. You know what everybody gonna be thinking in their head, man? Forget you. And I don't know if he thought that would actually be a rallying cry. But it's not. It's not gonna be no rallying cry. Especially like that. That's why I'm just thinking to myself, towards the tail end of DA's coaching tenure, did he want to get fired? Like, it's almost like, if you ever seen the show MASH, right? If you ever seen the show MASH, there was this I want to say I don't know if he was a private or a corporal, but anyway, his name was Klinger. And Klinger wanted to go home. Klinger wanted to go home back to his wife and his family. So at the time, this was very controversial. He would cross-dress. And he would do that so people would think he's out of his freaking mind, so they would send him home. But everybody was like, like, man, it's just Klinger. And he would just doing like bizarre things just to try to get himself discharged out of the military. So he was a corporal. Was he pulling a Corporal Klinger is what I'm saying. Like, or were you just out here trying to sabotage yourself? Am I going to just sit up here and say they ain't got no good players and they just going to tick off? I'm just going to tick them off to a point where they're going to be like, man, I'm done. Or I'm just going to be saying all this off the wall stuff, not giving encouragement or anything like that because I'm trying to get up out of here. I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering, man, because I don't want to believe that somebody that is as intelligent of a defensive mind would not have that type of plan. Would just, your team is losing, is teetering. At the time, you lost 5 straight. And then all of a sudden, like, you sitting up here talking about you ain't got no good players, no good young players. That had to be some Corporal Klinger type stuff, man. That man had to pull a Corporal Klinger. I'm just saying. Kamara is our best player right now, but Deuce is the Saints' greatest running back ever. I mean, that's a topic for debate. I think it depends on who you talk to. And also, my dog, we got to understand, man, like, as we grow older, we have an appreciation for our bygone era. You know what I'm saying? The era that we were a part of. Like, I just, it's like listening to 90s music, right? I mean, I'm in a car, I'm jamming to that Drew Hill Tell Me. I'm thinking about like some of these other artists, that came out in the 90s and the music and the messages and behind the music. But if you probably talk to a younger kid, they'll probably be like, man, what you listening to? And be like, man, this music right here, and it's like, what I'm saying is you have an appreciation for a player because, you can remember him in his prime. Like, I mean, we remember Deuce McAllister at Ole Miss. I remember when he was returning kick for the Saints in his rookie season. I mean, I think we all can remember like Deuce McAllister, like some of us, especially in the 30s and the 40s, like, some of us here. But if you talk to a young kid who probably remember mostly Saints football during the 06 and on to the present, like, they ain't going to have an appreciation for Deuce McAllister. They'll have an appreciation mostly for probably Reggie Bush or Darren Sproles or, AK or Mark Ingram, but that's just the way that it is. I mean, it's like watching a show. Like, man, one of my favorite shows growing up is Family Matters. Love watching Steve Urkel, right? But I mean, Pax don't know nothing about Steve Urkel. I was actually working with this young guy. He probably was in his 20s. And I was just sitting up there talking about Steve Urkel. We was just shooting the time. I was talking about shows I watch, and you asked me, say, who's Steve Urkel? And I was like, I had to think about it for a second. I'm like, in a minute, but that's the way that it is. So it depends on who you talk to. Some people would have, a different opinion. If you start talking to some of the younger Saint fans, they will probably sit up here and say, Kamara is the best. Or they'll bring up like some of these other guys, like I said, like Reggie Bush or Pierre Thomas or Darren Sproles or Mark Ingram. I mean, it depends on your era. I'm still stuck in Vietnam. says Corporal Klinger. Actually, Corporal Klinger was in a Korean War, if I'm not mistaken. But thank you for the $2, Corporal. I know, man. They're just one of those things where you're trying to get yourself discharged. But speaking of military, man, I want to wish all of the military veterans out there, members of the military, happy Veterans Day. I want to give a special shout out to my older brother, Sam Jones, man. He joined the military back in 2003, did 3 tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. And, that's somebody that I admire a lot. Growing up as a kid, he always had my back. And even as a grown-up, he still has my back. I know he watches this show all the time. He tells me that. And, just definitely want to dedicate this show to him. Shouts out to my brother-in-law, Mr. James Holston. He's out there in Bahrain right now. He's a member of the United States Navy. So, I mean, so many other like veterans out there that served. We appreciate your contributions. And also even the ones that lost their lives. I know they have Memorial Day, but we remember those individuals who sacrificed their lives on this day as well. So just want to give a special shout out to the veterans, and may the ones that we lost along the way, may they rest in peace. See, TJ, I found a new name for the Falcons, TT Birds. That's like WWF and WWE. Stone Cold and The Rock had the greatest rivalry all time. Yeah, I think you can put that up there. To me, I think the greatest rivalry of all time was The Undertaker and Kane. I know they teamed up from time to time, but I think that's the greatest story ever told in wrestling. I think that's the greatest rivalry in the history of wrestling. But yeah, Stone Cold and The Rock, yeah, their rivalry meant more because it actually saved the company. I like Jameis, but Saints have to put him on his hind part on Sunday. I think that Jameis Winston is going to play well, but I also think he's going to give the Saints opportunity to give the ball back. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think that Jameis Winston, he ain't afraid to sling that thing, and he ain't afraid to throw that rock down the field. So I think it's going to be an exciting game. But I think the Saints, when the opportunity presents itself, they got to be able to come away with some of those touchdowns. Could be touchdowns and turn them into, interceptions. Because James is going to push the ball down the field. See, now I'm a 2000s baby. I even know who Urkel is. Lee, I'm glad you know who Urkel is, but it's URKEL. But yeah, we look, everybody, like, for the most part, man. I mean, the show Family Matters was a classic. It was a classic, man. Well, to me, it was. I can't speak for everybody else in here, but appreciate you, TJ. Well, Charlie, I appreciate you as well, man. Appreciate you as well. That was a good rivalry too. Yeah, it really was, man. I mean, everybody knows me outside of just doing this podcast. I'm a huge wrestling fan. Got opportunity to take my family. Paxton went to his very first WWE live event. We went to Friday Night SmackDown a couple of weeks ago out in Columbia. And I don't know who it was, man. I wish I would have got the brother's name. I got to do that from time to time. I'm just so humble. Like when I meet people in the street and around the way that talk about how much they like the show, and I'm just be taken back by it, And I just never I don't know. But shouts out to the brother that I say out in Columbia, said that he loved watching the show, and I appreciate that. But end up going to Columbia, and even my wife, man, like my wife, she got excited. Like now, she's a Cody Rhodes fan now. Like she likes Cody. She's like he's like that, got that presidential look. And she was into it, man. She was into it. Like when they did the whole bloodline storyline, like, and now it's like when I be playing it on my phone as I'm getting ready, to get ready for work and getting ready for bring Paxton to school. Like she be trying to side eye, like she don't be want to pay attention. She won't know what's gonna happen with the bloodline. She won't see if Roman Reigns gonna prevail. She ain't slick, but we had a good time, man. I know, Jerry, I'm always watching SOTS, but quiet. Look, I appreciate it. Look, I appreciate you all checking out the State of the Saints. It means a lot to me. It's so crazy, like where this show started and where it is right now. I mean, we've done some amazing things. We've been some amazing places, and I say we because, like I said, I'm doing these things, and I get opportunity to do these things because of great folks like you. I mean, this stuff has to be checked, in order for me to get some of this access. And I just think that the fan engagement and some of the things that has transpired throughout the years and the shows that we do, I just think that people just, tend to, give us our respect. Maybe one day we'll get our respect where we can actually be on the ground with the New Orleans Saints. I don't know. I don't know now. I cannot call a spade a spade. I mean, I don't know, but we'll get there one day. We'll get there. Let's see. Let me make sure I ain't forget anybody. Josh says, what about Kirk nephews? He better than Kirk Cousins. Look, he played like Kirk nephews on Sunday as the New Orleans Saints knocked off the Falcons by a score of 20-17. I can tell you that. Eugene said, TJ, I won't lie, was conflicted over whether we're better off putting the Falcons in their place or to lose for the future. Nah, Eugene. Nah, buddy. No. No. I want the Saints to build, but let me finish up what you're saying. It says fans in 1981. So of course their Atlanta hate won out, bumped them people. Like anybody that's thinking like that, and I'm glad I finished reading the rest. But anybody thinking, oh man, the Saints should have not beat the Falcons, man, bro, I question your fandom. I don't care what the Saints. I don't care. Look, I'm gonna tell you how deep this is. It can be the final week of the season. The Saints need to lose to the Falcons in order for them to have the number one pick because the season been a disaster. I want the Saints to win. Give me the number 2 pick. Give me the number 2 pick in the draft because the number 2 pick might turn into CJ Stroud. Everything that look good ain't good for you. Bryce Young, he's been playing pretty decent over the last couple of games. Got a 2-game winning streak going out there in Carolina. But CJ Stroud has been spectacular. Now, they lost last night against the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions came back after, man, you talking about a Lions was who we thought they were type game. Jared Goff with 5 interceptions. But all in all, who wouldn't take CJ Stroud over Bryce Young? So sometimes, everything that look good ain't good for you. Is what I'm saying here. TJ, you're the most deserving credentials, brother. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I say, but I ain't hurting, man. I ain't hurting. I get to do some pretty cool things. I still managed to get my credentials through the NFL, so I get to go to like some cool stuff. Still get to go to the combine, still get to go to Senior Bowl, still get to go, and I'm waiting right now to see if the State of Saints podcast going to the Super Bowl. So we waiting on those credentials, and I'm pretty sure that's probably going to happen. So, we'll be doing, and I'm probably going to be reaching out. Shouts out to the Little Easy. Probably going to be doing some shows there. I ain't got to be on Radio Row, so so we could probably start doing some podcast episodes out there. And if you in New Orleans, we can do some meet and greetings and stuff like that. So we not hurting, man. We not hurting. Now I disagree, TJ. Give me the number 1 pick so I can beat those Falcons year after year. Yeah, Mike, shouts out to Mike. Mike always supports, man, not just on the State of the Saints, but I always see his commentary over on Bleacher Report as well. But what I'm saying is everything good ain't always good for you. Like you may have the number 1 overall pick. Carolina had the number 1 overall pick, right? The Houston Texans, if they would have lost against, I want to say the final game of the season. I don't know who Lovie Smith, Houston Texans played, but they ended up winning that football game. And they dropped from having a number 1 pick to the number 2 pick. If they would have got the number 1 pick, they probably would have got Bryce Young. So by them not phoning it in, they were able to get CJ Stroud with the 2nd overall pick. And if you ask the Houston Texans fans in their organization right now, they would say, thank you, Lovey, even though they were ticked off at him that he was like, forget y'all, we not phoning it in. You think Rizzy going to be our head coach? Too early to tell. Too early to tell. And it's easy to fall in love with a personality like Darren Rizzy, but I look, man should not live by personality alone, right? I mean, he understands the fan base. He resonates really well with the fan base, but you need more than that to be a coach, And if he manages to, win a few games and look the part over the next couple of weeks, then we can have this conversation. But I'm sorry, but I'm not picking Darren Rizzy over Ben Johnson. I'm not. If you got a chance to get Ben Johnson, I'm taking Ben Johnson. If you got an opportunity to maybe get Aaron Glenn as your head coach, even though I'm kind of, I don't know, man. I'm on the fence with that. But that's a toss-up. But all I'm saying is, if you got an opportunity to get like one of these high-profile head coaches to come there, I don't know if I'm getting Rizzy. The only way I would be saying let Darren Rizzy be the head coach is I would be being a prisoner of the moment. I'll be being a prisoner of the moment. Like, I like his fire, I like his attitude, his personality, etc., but he hasn't shown me enough. Hasn't shown me enough to say that, they need to make him the head coach. Because right now, we're feeling this way because he coached the Saints as they knocked off the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 20-17. But who's to say in the next couple of weeks you'll have this same feeling about Darren Rizzy? So it's too early. Too early. I hear you, but you still would want to pick first to choose your guy instead of someone taking your guy. But who's to say that they're going to take your guy? You get what I'm saying? Like, not every organization who picks first overall needs a quarterback. They might need an offensive lineman. They may need a pass rush. So it's not always the worst thing in the world. Like, as of right now, it might be an issue. Let's just say if you try to go after Shadir Sanders or Cam Ward, it might be a little bit of an issue, especially if you look at the Giants having the first overall pick right now and Daniel Jones being an absolute disaster. So that might hurt you. But at the end of the day, if you're picking in the top 10, if you 6 or 7, you still going to get a top player. You're still going to get a top player. So if the New Orleans Saints, I don't know, they can't get a quarterback, but you can get Will Campbell out of LSU. Who losing sleep over that? Like, you need help on the offensive line. Or you get one of the top pass rushers or the top pass rusher in the entire draft. Ain't nobody losing no sleep over that. That's all I'm saying. Or you can get Ashton Genty, to go alongside Alvin Kamara to try to make sure that the wide zone is on point. Like, who gonna get upset with that? Like, nobody. I don't know. So I get what you're saying, but not having a first overall pick, having a second or third pick is not like a death sentence. I mean, you can think about like how some teams have desperately tried to move up to get certain players and they don't. And then that said team that has the number one pick ends up drafting that player and they end up being a disaster. And the player that you end up picking at your position, they might end up being a cornerstone player. So would rather a head coach who has no existing ties to New Orleans. I would too, as of right now. I think Loomis will screw it up. I think a lot of people feel that way. Might get a offensive lineman from, I don't know, Stonywood or something. I don't know. If history repeats itself, there's we don't need a quarterback in the first round. Well, yes and no. Like, I want them to draft Shadir Sanders. I'm gonna be honest with you. I know some people have their reservations about him, the personality, the whole thing going on, the circus, the media circus. I get all that. But at the end of the day, I feel like you're going to be a better football team with him being a quarterback. Dude's just a good quarterback. He's smart. He's cerebral. Holds on to the ball a little bit too long at times, trying to make a play, trying to make his wide receiver separate. That's the only thing that I can really say about him. Like, he just holds on to the ball too long. But he be trying to wait for the wide receivers to possibly break off their routes or maybe get down the field so he can throw it. Other than that, like, I think he checks all the boxes when it comes to being a franchise quarterback. And I think that, him being such a polarizing figure doesn't help him. But at the end of the day, I think the dude is talented. But if the Saints don't get a quarterback, I mean, you got to keep Derek Carr for at least one more year. It's going to cost you $50 million. So you might end up rolling with them. And let's just say, for example, you'll put yourself in a very precarious position, because let's just say if that quarterback comes in, he looks better than Derek Carr, then what you doing? What are you doing? Like, you're putting yourself in a difficult place, especially like if you're Darren Rizzy, if they give him the job. Now, if it's another coach that comes in, has no ties to Derek Carr whatsoever, then, there's no love lost there. I'm going to take a few more, and then we're going to go ahead and get up out of here, folks. Says, man, I'm not losing to the red and black team. If you give me the first overall pick and $3 million in cap space, understand what a heated rivalry means. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's deeper than rap. With the exception of the Commanders quarterback. You're talking about Jaden Daniels. Most first-round quarterbacks don't amount to anything. Yeah, you got some that end up, amounting to something. I mean, Patrick Mahomes doing all right for himself, right? And you have, if you look around the league, Josh Allen doing okay for himself. Joe Burrow is doing okay for himself. Baker Mayfield looking pretty good, you got some guys. The thing about it is, Brandon, yes and no. It's hit and miss. Some guys are a little bit more polished than others. To me, I feel like the expressway that is the National Football League hurts a lot of these players. They hurt them because fan bases expect for those guys to be exactly what they need them to be right off the bat. And back in the day, in the 90s, even the early 2000s, like, teams would draft players at quarterback, and those guys will sit like 2 and 3 years. They'll sit behind that veteran quarterback and learn how to become a pro. And then once they get themselves established, the team might move on from that veteran, install that new guy, that young guy, and they hit the ground running. But now it's like everybody gets excited on draft day, right? Everybody gets excited because they feel like the possibility of that one particular player, no matter the position, will change your misfortune. If you were struggling on offensive line, you draft Tallahassee Fuaga, he's going to help you be a much better offensive line, quarterback, etc. See what Brock Bowers doing out there for the Raiders. Even though they're losing, he's as advertised. So all I'm saying is it's what those players represent. And when it comes to the quarterback, I don't think it's no greater level of optimism for your team's future than your team drafting a quarterback. And everybody's ready to see him. It's like somebody ready to eat a really good meal, and they're so excited about it. So they just hurry up, man. I can't wait. And it probably needs some more time. But you done took it out of the oven. You eating the hot spots. They got some warm spots over here. It ain't really what it needs to be. And I just think that if people had a little bit more patience, but this world isn't like that now. But if you had more patience, then guess what? I think that, you'll probably have better product when it comes to the quarterback, because teams understand this social media world that we're in right now. People don't have the patience and also the level of understanding when it comes to sports. I'm not talking about everybody. Get in where you fit in. I like to say that because some people only hear certain things. Get in where you fit in. Meaning, if you don't feel this way, I'm not talking to you. But people don't really understand football, so they just feel like what they're actually seeing is the overall product, but they're not thinking about the development of that player. And now you got the noise of social media, and now the organization is being pressured because people don't have the patience or understanding that this player needs to develop in a system in order for them to be a franchise quarterback. But all of the noise, all of the background noise that they're hearing, now it kills the kid's confidence, because now you're asking a kid who grew up in a social media world not to be on social media. Now they're going to hear that. And now their confidence is wavered. And now the noise is louder. Now that player feels like maybe they ain't got what it takes. And you have the organization succumbing to pressure. So I don't know, man. I look at players. I feel like a lot of what kills players is the social media noise and the outrage of fans, and the fact that organizations understand that it's a business, so they don't want to lose business, so they hurry up and try to appease the fans. So I think a lot of young quarterbacks end up dying a slow death because of it. But if people had more patience, I think you'll get better product, because you'll have these quarterbacks sitting and waiting. I think you may not like the Atlanta Falcons, but they got Michael Penix waiting in the wings, and Kirk Cousins, who is about 35, 36 years old. Once the pressure is not on Michael Penix, right? Michael Penix can kind of sit back because Kirk Cousins is doing so well. He can sit back and learn. And you may not want to hear this either, but there's a possibility where Penix can be really dangerous, because now he has sit back and became a student of the game. So when he's the starting quarterback of the Falcons, he'll be ahead of everybody else. So I just feel like, player development has become a lost art. Guys have to learn on the fly because fans want to see him. I want to see what he can do. He could be about as raw as chicken, but I want to see him. And, sometimes, it's not a good thing. Rizzy has to clean up our team flaws. That ain't happening, Stu. That ain't happening. The Saints are who they are at this point. We just have to roll with it, and hopefully they can be able to overcome some of these mistakes. But I got to give credit where credit is due, man, because, the apology got to be louder than the disrespect. Trevor Penning, highest rated player on Sunday. I want to say he had like 92. I had a 92 PFF grade, and everybody knows. We didn't talk about Trevor Penning. I didn't, put it to wax, But I just think that if we're gonna talk about him and talk about his shortcomings, we should talk about how this guy's improved, and nobody really saying anything about him. So at least Trevor Penning is developing as a player. Let's see. I was aggravated when Kamara dropped that pass. Yeah, I was too. Like I was like they said, crashing out, man. I was like, man, this team is cursed. You can't tell me this team ain't cursed. I'm like, man, please, like the hoodoo, the voodoo that you do on the Saints, please raise the hex. The next head coach will want to start his own quarterback next year. I believe that, but we'll see, man. We'll see. But later on in the week, we're going to be breaking down Saints versus the Cleveland Browns. Jameis Winston returning back to the Superdome. Can the New Orleans Saints get another victory? Can they go on a 2-game winning streak? We'll check it out. We'll keep you up to date on all the information pertaining to the New Orleans Saints right here on the State of the Saints podcast. My name is Timothy J. Jones. You can follow me on X at TJAY Jones 8. Check out previous episodes of the State of the Saints podcast right here on YouTube. Also, Gumbo Pod Sports Podcast. Check that out on that channel as well. And also NFC South Roundtable every Tuesday at 7 p.m. YouTube.com, search NFC South Roundtable, man. So thank y'all so much for being here. Shouts out to everybody in the chat, at home, around the way. Really do appreciate it. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.